I moved schools a lot when I was younger. And if I'm honest, I didn't mind. See, I was what my class reports would call talkative. So when I found out I was moving districts my 7th grade year, I was ecstatic. Just another opportunity to show off my brand new hijab. So when it was time to go to school, I jumped into my sister's car beaming, tracing the map of the school with my finger, I couldn't wait till I was there. Can't get lost on the first day, which, of course, is exactly what happened. I drank way too much of my Kool-Aid jammer and found myself lost on the other side of the school. Man, the 8th graders are huge, I thought as I noticed a group of boys forming close by. Not long after, they weren't far behind, and I started to hear words I recognized. Words before this I only ever heard to be a phrase of praise. The sneakers grew closer, and the voices became louder. Allahu Akbar, again and again they repeated, words simply to mean Allah is the greatest, God is the greatest, now being used to taunt me as I walked down the halls. I ducked into the closest classroom, hoping, listening, waiting for the boys to pass by. But for the rest of the day, I didn't turn a corner without looking over my shoulder. Went home and I never told a soul. This is the reality of growing up an other in America. From such a young age, we are influenced by the headlines we hear playing in the background. In shows, seeing who's considered the black sheep, to listening to conversations at the dinner table. This is why understanding our bias is so important. Whether we realize it or not, we are all influenced by the interactions we spectate throughout our lives. Which is why today, we will begin by building an understanding of what implicit bias is, then how it impacts the daily lives of those around us, before finally understanding just how important implicit bias is and why we need to understand and look into self-reflection and how this can help mitigate the dilemma. Quick, pick a name, think fast. 1, Tom Brady. 2, Mohamed Saleh. Did you pick? Both famous athletes, but the study is done by Pettigrew and both famous athletes, but the peer review center says that we are more likely to favor the name that is more familiar to us. Implicit bias, as defined by Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is bias or prejudice present but not consciously held or recognized. See, unconscious bias is not the same as conscious discrimination. I'm not saying there's a secret racist, sexist, or Islamophobe lurking within just waiting to get out, only that every person has our biases. Bias isn't just about race. It can be about gender, about religion, it can be about weight, it can be about class. This is why it's important to understand our biases. In the meta-analytic test done by Pettigrew and Trop in 2006, concluded that greater contact with out-group members can actively diminish prejudices. Almost more shockingly, research done by Hudson in 2011 found that direct contact isn't even always necessary. Even just knowing that a member of your in-group is friends with a member of the out-group can actively diminish prejudices. Now that we understand what implicit bias is, let's look into how we can help reduce the number of negative effects it can have on those in the world around us. What do you see when you look at me? Am I a peer, Am I a student? Or am I oppressed? Am I brainwashed? Am I a terrorist? Or am I someone you wouldn't want to stand behind in an airport security line, because that one's understandable. If you had some negative perceptions of me, I wouldn't blame you. And a study done by the ISPU organization in 2020 found that over 80% of news and media coverage done about Islam is negative. Now what about if I put on the niqab? Question number 2. How does your perception change if that becomes a face mask? Because in countries where masking is mandatory, the niqab is prohibited by law. In the article written in 2019 by Irene Zempri writes, several European countries, such as France, Denmark, Belgium, and Austria, have implemented a law banning the niqab on the basis of gender oppression, but without asking and without speaking to those who choose to wear it in the first place. By deciding that something is oppressive without talking to those and ignoring those who make the choice to wear it, this is the true oppression they say they're advocating against. Now that we understand how important mitigating the risk of implicit bias is, let's now look at how our own biases would compare. Let's play a little game. In a riddle conducted by the Mindspace.org in 2015 writes, see if you can follow along as we go. There was a man who brought his son to an interview. The interview took place at a large stockbroker's company in the city. As soon as they arrived, the man's phone rings. He picks up the phone and looks at his father, who says, "Good luck, son, you've got this." The caller of the company was the large stockbroker's company's CEO, who answers the phone and says, "Good luck, son, you can do it." The son ends the phone call and looks at his father, who is still in the car. How did this happen? Do you know? The CEO was his mother. It's okay, don't feel bad if you didn't get it right. Out of the 20 people they tested, only one answered correctly. This doesn't mean you've been secretly outed as a misogynist. We may full-heartedly believe that a woman can be a good CEO, while actively hold that positions of power belong to men. This is why implicit bias is so harmful. Even though we are no longer 8th graders walking through hall, we can all play a part in making sure that our campus is safer by addressing our own implicit bias. Which is why I ask this one request. I ask you, as you go about your daily life, to internally ask questions. Use the understanding we have built of what implicit bias is, who it affects, and how self-reflection can mitigate this problem as your toolbox. Use this to invite questions, not just of if you are right to feel the way that you do, but why and where did it come from. Ask yourself at the end of the day if the impact you are making is a positive one. Thank you.